The national championship game is set for college football, and the Michigan Wolverines will face the Washington Huskies. Today, we're taking a look at what Michigan needs to do, what we learned from their game against Alabama, and how they can beat Washington in this national championship game. Michigan did a great job of being physical with Alabama. When you looked at that matchup, you knew that they had to be physical. You knew that's exactly what they wanted to do. They executed to perfection in that first half. They were absolutely dominating on the line of scrimmage. And that's something they can do again against Washington. One of the things that Washington does really well is create explosive plays. And one way to disrupt that is by being very physical up front, having your defensive line disrupt that Washington offensive line, disrupt Michael Penix Jr., because that passing attack is dangerous if you are not careful. And if Michigan can find a way to win in the trenches, then you're going to see a national championship come to Ann Arbor. You will see a team that plays with a ton of confidence. And when you looked at what that first half represented, you looked at Michigan as the team that was the better team. Now, in the second half, they didn't continue that as consistently. But if they're able to do that against Washington, you're going to disrupt the flow of that Washington offense. And that is exactly what you need to do because Washington can create explosive plays. They can be an absolute nightmare to stop. Penix was making a lot of nice throws against Texas because Texas front seven couldn't get to the quarterback. Now, another thing that Penix does really well is he knows his hot routes. He knows that if there is pressure coming his way, he knows how to get to his check downs and get them the football. And obviously, you're not going to want to do that all game, but if Michigan can create him or create that internal clock to speed up, then you're looking at a team that will have some success against that passing attack. The Washington passing attack with Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan, that's just the trio of everyone that they know. But when you look at what else they have a deep group. But getting to Michael Penix Jr. almost negates that talent because you're not allowing him to go through his progressions and find guys downfield. You're making him go down to those check down routes and you're forcing him to make decisions that maybe he doesn't necessarily want to make, but knows that he has to. You also would create sacks. The more hits you get on Michael Penix Jr., you also speed up that internal clock. You also make him a little bit antsy in the pocket, and maybe he misses a throw or two because he's not waiting for his guys to get open downfield. And Michigan's defense will do a lot to make that a reality. And when you look at what they did against Alabama, that was against an Alabama team that couldn't really throw the football. And I think that at times Jalen Milroe made some nice throws, but Michigan did a great job of mostly keeping him in check. You're facing a very different team, though, in Washington. This is a very different offense than what you saw against Alabama. Alabama wanted to run the football, and not necessarily that Washington doesn't want to run the football. We'll see what happens with Dylan Johnson, the running back for Washington, got hurt in the Sugar Bowl. So we'll see if he is available, but they are going to want to throw the ball more than they want to run the football. Now, it's a nice compliment with Dylan Johnson so far, but if he's not going, I'm very curious what that means for Washington against Michigan. Michigan can at least focus on, again, one aspect of the game. With Alabama, it was the rushing attack. With Washington, it'll be the passing attack. So maybe if you get one sided, that favors Michigan because they don't necessarily have to worry about one side of that offense. And that will be interesting. Now, on the flip side, a lot of things for Michigan in that Rose Bowl win stemmed from what can JJ McCarthy do. And for the most part, they just asked him to take care of the football. They did not scheme up much that required him to make a ton of big time throws. They didn't make him make a ton of deep throws, intermediate to deep throws until that last drive. It was pretty much just short crossing routes, a couple intermediate routes, nothing crazy, allowing him to use his legs. You're going to see more of the same. Problem with that is if their defense can't slow down Washington, then you get into this track meet and more pressure gets on JJ McCarthy. And I don't know if Michigan is built to withstand that. That's probably my biggest concern with this game is what happens if their defense can't slow down Washington's offense? What happens if that passing attack gets going to a blistering pace? Can JJ McCarthy and that offense keep up? And I think that this is an offense that is also very efficient with what they do. They're not necessarily trying to win games 56-49. That helps when you have a really good defense. But if you're in a little bit of a jam because your defense isn't stepping up or your defense is struggling against that offense, more pressure goes on JJ McCarthy. And my concern is that he doesn't have proof that he can handle that kind of a situation in terms of winning them a football game. That would be my only concern for this game. But if Michigan's offense is doing what I expect them to do, then you don't necessarily have to really worry about it. Your defense can do, for the most part, what they've done all year, and that allows your offense to be efficient. You allow JJ McCarthy to be a factor with his legs. You allow him to sit back and make smart and easy reads. You allow him to get the football to his playmakers, guys like Roman Wilson, who we saw stepped up in a big way in the Rose Bowl. You also saw Tyler Morris make a couple plays. This offense has the playmakers to step up and make plays, but I don't necessarily know if they can do that at a blistering pace. But if your defense keeps Washington largely in check, you can continue running the tempo, dictating the pace that you want offensively. Also, when you have a running back like Blake Corum, you know that you're going to pick up big yards. And I think that this defense of Washington's is still really good. I just don't know if it's necessarily Alabama's defensive front, especially not the front seven, but you still have to take them seriously. This is a group that can be disruptive, that can be really good. And if you're not careful, they will slow down this offense. But I really like what Michigan has done up front. Despite some injuries on the offensive line, you've seen a group that continues to play at a high level. So two biggest things here. Offensive line needs to continue playing the way it has done all year. So I don't have too many concerns with that. And you also need this defense to find a way to slow down this offense. You have not faced a passing attack like Washington's. You have not faced an offense that has this much talent at every position. When you look at the closest one, probably Ohio State, the quarterback position, they have not seen a Michael Penix Jr. They simply have not seen that combined with a trio of wide receivers that will be a nightmare to stop. That is the biggest thing for Jesse Minter to figure out is how you're going to slow down that offense. Because if they're not able to do that, like I said, their offense gets a lot more pressure to put points on the scoreboard, and that's not a game that Michigan wants to play. If you're able to dictate the pace, not to say that this is a slow pace. Michigan is an efficient offense that can put points on the scoreboard. They're just not looking to do that at a blistering pace. They're not looking to do it at light speed. They want to do it at their own pace. And if you're able to slow down that offense and your offense can continue doing what it's doing, Michigan is in good hands. Obviously, a lot of that will be determined by what their own offense can do. And a lot of that runs through JJ McCarthy. And we've talked about him all year. And I think for him, it's just continuing making those smart decisions. And you look at what happened in the Rose Bowl. You saw JJ McCarthy look really comfortable in the first half. Wasn't doing anything crazy, wasn't the reason that they were winning the game, but he was taking care of the football. He was making smart reads. And a lot of times for quarterbacks, you just need to find a way to get your playmakers the football. And there are some plays that JJ McCarthy made that weren't exactly the most difficult, but there are a lot of quarterbacks that probably would have panicked in that situation. So you have an advantage with JJ McCarthy's ability to stay calm in big moments, his ability to make big plays when Michigan needs him the most, and then also picking up yards with his legs. Washington has to respect his running ability, and that adds to a backfield that already features Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. You have a number of players that you have to worry about if you're Washington. So Michigan has to be efficient running the football once again. That will open things up for play action pass, the passing attack just in general, and finding ways to make big plays when you're looking at a Washington team that maybe plays a little bit more man coverage because you're not expecting a big passing attack. So that allows you to run some of those mesh routes, those crossing routes that get guys like Tyler Morris open, get guys like Roman Wilson open. You saw that against Alabama. They were able to run that against man coverage, and that created some difficulties for the Crimson Tide defense. If you can do the same against Washington, you're in good hands. Now, a player that I'm really excited to watch in this game is Will Johnson. Will Johnson against Rome Odunze will be one of the most exciting matchups we've seen this year. And we've seen Marvin Harrison Jr. versus Kalen King when Ohio State and Penn State played. You've seen players play at a high level and two guys that are going against each other that will play in the NFL. Will Johnson will play in the NFL. Rome Odunze will play in the NFL as well. That's going to be interesting. I think an underrated matchup, though, has to be Jalen McMillan against Mike Sainristil, or even Jalen Polk against Mike Sainristil. I think that Sainristil has done an incredible job of learning multiple positions for this Michigan team, both on offense and now on defense. He is full time on defense and he has stepped up in a big way, but he is facing a really talented group of wide receivers and a quarterback that can get them the football. So I'm interested to see how he handles that. This Michigan defense is playing really well right now, but this is a big test. This is probably their toughest test to date. And it would be really fun to see how they handle that because if they're able to shut down that offense of Washington, they're in good hands. But it's going to be a tough battle for all four quarters. And you're going to have to find ways to gain an advantage. You're going to have to find ways to get the football back to your offense and find ways to keep Washington's offense off the field. Some of that is on their offense as well. But Michigan is no, they know what they're doing. They know how to win football games. Obviously, they've been doing that all year. And to win a national championship, you have to beat the toughest team you faced all year, but you have to do it with a similar formula. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have to continue doing exactly what you've done all year. And if you do that, you're going to come home with that national championship.